If I could wave a magic wand and make any one emotion disappear from your life, you'll never feel this emotion ever again, what emotion would you pick? For a long time, my answer to that would have been anger. I really thought that my life would be better if I just never felt angry again. I didn't really see its purpose. But it turns out that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Every emotion is important, and every emotion has a message. Because emotions aren't really what we think they are. They sometimes feel like these intense urges and these sort of catalysts for action. But really, emotions are information. Emotions are the language of our intuition. Emotions are that instantaneous felt sense. They arise within milliseconds, and they show up as bodily sensations first. And then after some moments of processing, they show up as thoughts that pass through our minds, and they can result in action, but it's usually in that order. Bodily sensation, some sort of thought, which often takes the form of an appraisal. So this means something good is happening, this means something bad is happening, this is a reaction to this situation. We make meaning of that bodily sensation. And then there's some action. Sometimes it's inaction, but there's then a choice. What are we going to do about this feeling that's arising? And it is so freeing to recognize that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Anger serves its purpose. Anger is a sign that our true self is feeling blocked. Something is feeling impeded. That's why anger comes with this rise in energy. It's our body, our mind, our spirit preparing to move through a blockage. And sadness even has its role. It's a call for attention. It's an invitation in to quiet down and really sit with something that's happening and know it fully. There is no such thing as a bad emotion. And there is nothing wrong with you for feeling angry, for feeling sad, for feeling afraid. These are signals. One of my favorite poems is The Guest House by Rumi. And in this poem, Rumi describes us as a guest house and emotions as visitors. And what I love about this poem is that it provides this beautiful metaphor with such a simple message for how we can relate to our feelings, our emotions. Rumi encourages us to invite them in, laughing, whether it's despair, whether it's joy, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, hope. Invite them all in. They're guests. We can sit them down to tea and listen to them, ask them what they have to say to us. Because, and the poem ends, these guests, these emotions are messages from the great beyond. They are pieces of information that are coming from source, that are coming from beyond this physical realm. So not only is there nothing wrong with feeling any type of emotion, whether it's difficult, pleasant, unpleasant, not only is there nothing wrong with these emotions, but they are important pieces of information. And our challenge is to invite them in, because it's incredibly common in modern society with our fast-paced lives, with our to-do lists, to use strategies to keep emotion at bay. You know, we're told that we're supposed to be logical and clear-headed and think without emotion, to stay kind of level-headed. And so we've developed strategies, whether it's distracting ourselves, doing tasks, instead of asking ourselves, why do I feel the need to be so busy? And what am I trying not to feel? Our challenge is to pause and honor our feelings, to notice them, notice what sensations arise in the body, and ask, what is the message that you have for me? What is it that I need to know right now from this visitor? And it might sound intimidating at first, like especially when sadness comes up, anger, grief, when these emotions that have been labeled difficult, have been labeled negative, arise. This practice might sound really intimidating, but what I have found is that when we really see emotions for what they are and engage with them for what they really are, there's freedom and there's beauty in all emotion. There is this life energy in all emotion. They become our friends, and it becomes clear that there's nothing to fear in feeling sadness, in feeling anger, in feeling fear itself. That these are simply pieces of information. We are not our emotions, and when we see our emotions clearly, when we take that extra second to approach our emotions with curiosity, then our true self gets to make the decision. Our true self gets to act. We are free from acting out of fear, from acting out of anger. And instead, we can take the information and decide, what do I want to do with this information? Fear no longer takes the wheel and says, oh, we need to scurry to protect ourselves. We can ask, am I really in danger? And what do I really want to do next? With the knowledge that you are safe and that you are the universe, you are indestructible. With that knowledge, what do you want to do? You can notice the sadness. Maybe it's an invitation to reflect, to slow down. You can feel the grief. Maybe it's a sign that something is not in alignment. And what do you want to do about that? Because emotions arise in milliseconds and they pass incredibly quickly. Sometimes it feels like an emotion turns into a mood. So maybe something happens in the morning and sadness arises. And it feels like, oh man, the rest of the day is just a sad day. We're feeling low. But what we don't realize about emotion is that sadness is only carrying throughout the day because we're not listening to it, and because we're allowing the thinking mind to extend that sadness into the day, because we problematize it. We think, oh, I'm feeling this sadness. I don't want this to be here. I want it to go away. Why am I feeling sad? I don't want this to be happening. Oh, not again. And then it becomes fear. Oh, is my whole day going to be ruined by this? Then all of a sudden, the sadness goes from this fleeting emotion, this wave in the vast sea of consciousness, to this whole pattern of thinking. It takes on a whole life of its own. Then all of a sudden the sadness is in the driver's seat and you are reacting to the sadness. You are beholden to the sadness rather than noticing the sadness, feeling it, feeling the bodily sensations that arise with that sadness, asking the sadness, what message do you have? And then letting it go, letting it continue on in the ocean of consciousness, letting it leave the guest house and deciding what you want to do next. These are all practices that are life's work. A lot of this requires undoing so much messaging that we've received around how much we should be having emotions in the first place, that we need to be logical, level-headed, and then what types of emotions are socially acceptable, what types of emotions are good or bad. And really, emotions are information, and we have a choice as to what we want to do when we notice an emotion arise. They can be our friends if we let them.